One.
What's up, everyone? Good evening, or good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and whatever which order you guys are listening to this episode. I appreciate you all for being here with us at this time. We have a lot to celebrate and a lot to address for the latest episode of Victory is Ours. I am your host, your gracious and humble host, Vic Benito, aka Vic Virtuous. And at this time, I have a very, very special guest, to say the least. Author, director, visual audio director, father first, amazing father, amazing friend. For the short time I've known him, he's an amazing dude, which we'll get into. I would like for y'all to welcome my special guest, Esteban Serrano. Thank you for joining Victory is Ours podcast. Oh man, it's a beautiful, beautiful time right now. I'm excited. I'm full of nerves and all that good stuff, right?
Thank you for having me, and happy birthday, man.
Oh, man, thank you so much. I appreciate that, man. No. Thank you.
On your birthday, you invited me. I mean, I'm humbled by it. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you taking time away from the family. You could be anywhere else, most importantly with them, but you took time away to...
Let's be clear. Anytime I can get away from my family, I'm out. And it's cool because they're not going to watch this, so they will never know.
Oh man,
I'm the least cool person in my family, so anytime I can get away from them turkeys, it's all good. No, I'm joking.
I gotta watch how hard I laugh because I have my family out in the audience, so they'll be like, "What is he laughing?"
They'll get in trouble, about? Bro.
Exactly.
Stay focused.
But man, as I said, we have a lot to celebrate tonight. I definitely usually. We kind of steer the podcast in a different direction. It'll either be in person or through a Zoom, just being totally transparent. Mm-hmm. But this is a special event. Man, I have my notes here with me. Usually I kind of freestyle off the top with questions and have a few notes to refer to. But
you know that you're a rapper because your notebook is like... It looks biblical.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Like it's like the recyclable paper on the cover. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it's not no scrap paper. You took some time. So I'm excited about this.
And that's what I was leading into. I wanted to be well prepped and just, you know, it's hospitality. You welcome people into your home or an establishment that, you know, you want to be just in preparation and prepared for your guests. So I said, let me get my notes together. Like I did the research. As I told you earlier, man, in the last 2.5 weeks or so, I've been hugged up with your book, which we'll definitely get into.
Dope.
Like Linus with his blanket, you know, and ironically, I left it behind tonight.
Me too.
Which is one of the commonalities that we have, man. Oh my goodness.
We mean well.
Yes, absolutely. But, you know, and one of the things that was kind of spurred a moment was the fact that you posted a promo video, and within it you said, you never know what'll happen tonight, man. With the hand movements, you never know what kind of like what I'll do or what, you know. And I wanted to really flip the script on Victory is Ours tonight and kind of step away from tradition. And as I always tell people, I don't want the podcast to be like an interview. I'd rather more like a conversation piece.
Let's do it.
So, and as you, and one of the many hats that you wear as being a podcaster, I would love for you to interview me as well.
Let's do it. That was going to happen anyway. I don't know if you've already seen the co-host energy. I just can't shut up sometimes.
I love it.
And what's dope, I'm tooting my own hat here, but something that I feel that I found is dope about me is I am a student of life.
Exactly right.
And so even when we're having a conversation, if I'm going to ask questions, and I'm going to dive in just because I want to learn things too.
Right, exactly.
And, you know, this will be an exchange of info, you know?
Absolutely. And one of the most important things to me is that it's organic, it's natural, and I feel like that's been our vibe and connection since we met.
Yes, sir.
As I stated earlier, well, maybe not with the beginning of the podcast, I haven't known you long. We haven't spent much time together, but I feel like the instant connection, the energy was right.
Absolutely.
Our wives are like, everything's just so in unison.
Yeah, man.
I mean, we went out to lunch together and just bounced ideas and conversation at each other like it was years in the making.
Yeah,
you know
wild.
What I mean?
It's wild.
And I'm just so appreciative of that. And I just want you to know, or before we even really get into anything, I want to let the people know what we're celebrating tonight. Number one is we made it obvious. It's my birthday, my 47th. I'm proud and very happy to announce that. 47 years old. We're on the tail end of the celebration, 50th celebration of hip hop.
Yes.
Okay. So that's one of the commonalities that you and I share is a love for hip hop
Absolutely.
and just me with music in general. And I want to dive into that more with you. And the celebration of your book and with familyhood. You know, we definitely want to celebrate that.
Yes.
And one last thing, this is the 3rd year anniversary of Victory Is Ours.
Wow.
My podcast. It was
Congratulations.
Thank you.
My goodness.
Yes, it was launched in
3 is
2000.
my number too.
Is it really?
Yeah, man. The Trinity. I got 3 sons.
Right,
Yeah,
right, yes.
3 is my.
Yes,
that's
3 is
a
the
very
magic
important
number.
number.
Who's
Yeah.
that from? I gave it away already.
Hey, there you go. You already.
But yeah, so we got the Victory Is Ours, which was launched 2020, my birthday, in fact. So a few minutes late because I was rushing, multitasking, trying to wear the different hats, and it spilled a little bit over 12 midnight, but it's all right. It's still all good. You know, I was happy with the podcast launch, the episode, the content. It was my child, my baby, and
Yes.
we're just in celebration of all of these things. And we have our guests out here, a few, people in the seats. So I want you guys to be involved as well. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw at us. This is a Victory Is Ours celebration. So not just my birthday celebration, not just the celebration of my brother and his endeavors, but this is for us all, right? So, but please tell me about yourself, man. I mean, with doing a deep dive these last few weeks, of your legacy, your interviews, your preparation with the book, the launching of your book and everything, I feel like I've learned a lot about you, man.
Dope.
A lot. But for those who haven't heard of Esteban Serrano or done their deep dive, please explain to the people a little bit about yourself, the book, your history, whatever you feel like you compelled that you may have not put out there for the audience to hear yet.
Word.
That
So
they can't find on social media, anywhere, really.
I have to start off whenever I talk about my origin story, or if you meet me for 5 seconds, I am West Philadelphia born and raised. That has to be stated.
Very consistent.
Because that is probably one of the most important elements of who I am. I grew up in West Philly. At the time where I was like starting to be cognizant of my environment, my surroundings, was the crack era. And therefore I needed to stay myself in the house,
Right.
because there was a lot of action going on outside that I needed not only not participate in. I was very young when it happened, but I didn't need to be exposed to. But at that same time, there were 2 big rappers from West Philly that were low-key warring, but I was between both of them. And this is why I am the rap nerd that I am. So in my neighborhood in Winfield, in West Philly, I was 2 blocks away from the Fresh Prince, Will Smith. And this was when Will was in high school, but the Fresh Prince, the rapper and the music was humongous. Remember, Will won the first ever rap Grammy in that category. Like he is a star, and was, I think, when he was a junior in high school, right? And then on the other side of West Philly, my father was dating and living with Steady B's mom.
Yes.
And so on weekends, I was in that part of West Philly, Hilltop, and I was just in the living room watching Crush Groove every weekend. Like, it was the thing that I watched every weekend. And at the time, Tap Money and Cool C and Steady B was coming in and out of the living room. Sometimes they'd be rehearsing a set, or sometimes they'd be writing, or, just, talking business or what have you. And I was just soaking all that game up. And then I would go back to the other side of West Philly, and I go to Cuts and Fades, the barbershop, and that was where Will got his haircut. And I would see him slaying MCs who would come, challenge him. So I was like, I had literally a front row seat, like more exposure than most people had to these like iconic, rappers from my neighborhood that were, if you zoom out, they were some of the biggest in the space at the time.
Absolutely.
But literally sharing a living room or at the barbershop or on the basketball court with these artists. So they were a lot more tangible and a lot more human to me. You know what I mean? But that was kind of the environment that kind of created and fostered my love for hip hop.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
I just grew up as a rap nerd. Like any and everything I could get my hands on, I turned into an instrument for me to be able to play or experience hip hop music.
Wow.
So, yeah, and then obviously 40 some years later, I'm blessed to like be a part of the scene and be a part of the culture in a really, really big way. So going from West Philly, being young, being exposed to these artists, and I'll fast forward it real quick because I'm sure we'll get into the weeds. But, as of late, I grew up in the crack era watching MTV Raps. And, I was able to resurrect the brand and bring it back, launching it in Asia, launching it in the UK.
Huge.
And then, last year, launching it here in the States as the creative director of that project. And my claim to fame is the first time you've heard Kendrick Lamar, you've heard Travis Scott, you've heard Pop Smoke, you've heard A$AP Rocky, they were on my show, a show that I produced on various networks or platforms. So, yeah, to go from that West Philly kid to being who I am now, just a dream. I'm living a dream every day.
Let me just say something to attest to you and your character and who you are as a person, to me at least from the short time I've known you. One of the reasons why I wanted to sit down with you is just just the energy and the great vibes from when we first connected. Now, the notoriety and the accolades and everything that you just stated is great, but just from you as the way you present yourself to be as a genuine person, that's the person that interests me more than all the accolades and trophies and everything that you could hold up and present in front of people, right? And I just always find that to be more of a compelling reason to sit down and build with somebody. You know what I mean? Just to understand their mindset and how their story was manifested into what it came to be. And just the fact that you're such a humble dude, like, you don't get this feeling of, oh, he's connected with Sway or MTV Raps or URL or Fuse or whatever. Like, you are just such a humble dude. And the fact of you, the message that you're trying to consistently put out to the public about fatherhood and positivity, and the fact that you respect women and that you would never refer to a woman as a bitch. Like, these are the things that I respect most about you than all these other trophies, honestly. And it just really inspires me as a man, as a father, as an artist, as a music lover. Like, this is I want the people to know this is exactly why you're sitting down with me today, honestly. And I mean, I don't want to do too much yapping yet because I have a whole gang full of questions, but I just needed you to know that. And that I appreciate you for everything that you're doing, not only for hip hop, but for men, for dads, and just for everyone.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Now, do you, like I said earlier, we're going to bounce some questions off each other.
Sure.
So do you have anything for me? Do you have anything for me? I'm telling you, we're just going to be spontaneous and just throw it out there, man.
Word. No, I feel like as we get into it more, then I'm going to naturally just be asking you questions.
Right. Okay. What I would like to know also, because I've, in all respect due to the people who have interviewed you so far, but as we said earlier, well, I'll just say that I would have loved to get more of a deep dive into your humble beginnings, like with hip hop, your involvement, what it felt like. Tell me what this whole resurgence of Yo MTV Raps was like, because what I remembered last about Yo MTV Raps was the big cypher at the end, Chubb Rock, man. MC Light, everybody in it, Rakim, everyone, just doing a little sign off, and that was it. It just went off into the sunset. I haven't seen this relaunch in the UK, in Asia, and now here. What was that experience like? Please talk to me more about that.
Oh my God! First of all,
how did you get it to pop off? Please tell me.
God is my secret weapon.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, and the more I am obedient and the more that I just shut up and do what he tells me to do, or like just get out of the way and let it cook, the more like comes to me. Like, so I got heavy into UK hip hop.
Okay.
And I was also blessed, I think in 2010, I was blessed to be part of a project with two of the biggest rap artists in Korea, Tiger JK and Yomi Ray. And I spent time in LA with them like a couple weeks while they were working on music. And so I really dove into like Asian hip hop because of them. They were like my gateway in. Before, I hadn't really been that exposed. I like know about the Teriyaki Boys. I know about a few like, you know, Asian rap groups, but I didn't really do the homework and the knowledge until I met them. And then it just forced me down that rabbit hole. Okay. So again, 2010 and maybe 2012, I got heavy into UK hip hop. And so,
was it something that you understood?
It was something that so and I was talking to your wife about this, and this is why I loved those genres at the time that I discovered them. I wasn't young enough to experience the origins of hip hop.
Okay.
When I was born and when when hip hop became like a thing to me, it was already maybe 8 years old. So like UK grime and garage, when I got onto it, felt like this was something that was a spark that they were starting to put together to form a genre.
Got you.
It wasn't an established rolling out type of thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I felt that way when I first listened to like early K-pop and like the, you know, like Asian hip hop. But that, again, that was 2010, 2012. And MTV had hit me up to be a part of Yo MTV Raps relaunch in 2017.
I never caught this, man.
Right, but because it didn't come out. It didn't happen. So they bring me in for a meeting, and they're like, you know, we want to bring Yo MTV Raps back, and, you know, how do you feel about that? What do you think? And I loved it. I loved the opportunity. At the time, it was very much in its infancy, and the company that they were going with wasn't the company that they ultimately decided to go in that direction. And they didn't want to launch TRL and Yo in the same year. So it wound up becoming an MTV International play, and I got to work with one of my favorite people in the world. Her name is Jen Demi. Her brother is Ted Demi, who was the original creator of Yo MTV Raps, who is also the director of Life, the director of Blow, the director of Who's the Man.
Wow.
So Ted's younger sister, Jen, is a music OG. Is literally Ted in the female form. You know what I'm saying? And so, and that's God again. God planted her in my life in 2011 when I was working at Fuse on a show called Hip Hop Shop. And then 10 years later, 2020 was when we were doing Yo. So we did it in Asia first. It killed because obviously hip hop is such a humongous force all over the planet. Like, you can drop hip hop into Amazon and it's going to kill. Like, it's just the energy. So we did it in Asia first. It really resonated. It did really well. And then they did it in the UK and it crushed. And so Paramount Plus became a thing, as all companies try to do streaming services. But Paramount Plus is actually doing really well. But everyone and their mom is streaming for some reason. And so they were like, that's the perfect time to bring Yo back to the States. But the project itself, man, I was a kid in a candy store. One thing, hip hop fans, and myself included, we are the most vocal. We are the most opinionated.
Absolutely.
If we don't like something, you gonna know.
Facts.
I'm going to make sure you know. I am personally offended and disrespected by things I don't like. You know what I'm saying? I had to approach it with that in mind. I'm like, yo, the OGs are going to be like, don't touch this. Why are you doing this? This is crazy. Leave it alone. Let it have its legacy. And then but I was like, I want to do this.
It's bold, man.
But I kept the DNA of Yo.
Okay.
Like I kept it. It was MC and a DJ. Now the DJ is
Dr. Dre,
Diamond. Yes, It was Ed Lover and Dr. Dre, and the new version is Conceited and DJ Diamond Cuts.
Yes.
From Philly, one of the illest, DJs, a woman, of course, but a dope producer, a dope radio host. Like she got chops and can cut.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was very important that the female representation was like just as dope, if not more than, because they are shining as of late, of course, but they've always been a huge part of hip hop, and they needed a seat at the table in a real way.
Absolutely.
I kept that energy. I kept that like handheld, like fun, like loose energy as well in the actual direction of the show. But my favorite part and the most important part for me of working on Yo MTV Raps was 98% of my crew was people of color.
Wow. That is big.
And
that's big.
We used a black-owned production company out of L.A. called Holland West, and they were amazing. And, like, everyone on set, the camera, like, the craft service, everybody on set was us. So we were more connected to the content than we, are generally. And like, I remember we had long days. We shot 2 episodes a day, sometimes 3. And the crew were like, every day they showed up excited to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? They were like, yo, this is my favorite project. I can't believe that, I got the call to do this, so I was very, very, very happy with the end result, but it was very important that we were a part of it. It was very important that certain things were represented in a way that hadn't been done before.
Right.
One of the big things that I did for the American version was I did a big piece on the Latin contribution to hip hop.
Beautiful.
And that's episode 1.
That's dope.
You got Cypress Hill, Nicky Jam, you have
Kid Frost.
I'm Well, all a part of this package because, of course, I call myself Puerto Rican. My dad is Puerto Rican. My mom is black. I don't speak Spanish. My whole name is all the Spanish I know. So I'm Puerto Rican. I'm very Puerto Rican. I'm very proud of it. But as a joke, I say I'm Puerto Rican.
I love that.
But I grew up, my Puerto Rican pop is like, he's Puerto Rican, right? You know that dude's Puerto Rican. You know that he's Puerto Rican. So I always grew up very, very conscious of the contributions that Latinos had in hip hop. And so when I got the opportunity, I was like, I have to do this. It was an ode to him, but it was also like a nod to the fact that like we were here, we were creating this music alongside. We were a big part of it, and I wanted to give them their flowers as well.
You just highlighted one of my questions, which I felt was important to mention because we have some young viewers in the place who may not be cognizant, or I know for a fact they're not really cognizant of Yo MTV Raps, your video music boxes, your Pump It Ups, taking it even further back.
You never sent me the link to Pump It Up, by the way.
I got you tonight.
You owe me that.
I'm going to definitely send you.
I need to do my homework.
Yes. And look, I'm going to go even further back with a show that I loved as a kid, one of my first and favorites, Hot Tracks. If you don't know about that, you need to look it up.
The race cars? That was Hot Wheels.
Nah, Hot Wheels.
There was a show called Hot Tracks.
Hot Tracks. It's such a dope show. I'm gonna send you the link to that too.
Please.
I believe they had a Latino host. He passed away since I think fairly recent. But my point, like I said, I'm glad that you highlighted the fact of the origins of hip hop and who was there, who had a hand in its manifestation, and it's really important to really highlight that and break that down. So. You guys know your history, which is essential to any genre of music. Absolutely. Or just in general throughout life, really. I feel like the more of your history and research that you do, the more skills and know-how and like the conversations we're having now is based on history. So Maja, you know, this is part of the reason why I love you. This is part of the reason I always tell you, as much as you love your K-pop, even with those groups and artists, like, do your research and see where the origins of those things came from, because it's
hip hop.
Right. There you go. Exactly.
Hello.
Exactly.
I got into a huge argument at the VMAs this year.
Really?
Because they want to try to talk about how Latin trap is not hip hop. And I'm like, what is the second word in that genre?
There you go. Exactly.
That came from us.
Yep.
And K-pop, I love. You can't have a K-pop group without rappers in it. You just can't. And what I love about K-pop is that they are purists. Like, they dive into the OGs and they listen to, like, it's not like they're not trying to placate and appropriate. They're trying to do it justice and pay respect.
Right.
And I feel like there's rappers nowadays that don't do that in America.
Thank you.
So I gotta give, love to that genre as well. But be clear, a lot of this stuff came from us.
Absolutely.
I feel like hip hop is Egypt, and everybody else is Greek, and we'll get into that. But come on, man, This is the source.
And this is one of the questions I wanted to ask you also. What was the experience like being in the other countries and experiencing that? Because I hear that often. I went to London and I saw a much more appreciation for hip hop and just music, whether it was jungle, which I was introduced to while I was in London, but just the appreciation for music in general and hip hop. Like, I feel like at times that we're spoiled and lack the, you know what I mean? Like,
no, absolutely.
I can't stand that. So.
I feel like, and this is going to be weird and going off on a tangent, but I feel like in a past life, I was British.
Okay.
Because a lot of my favorite television shows are there. A lot of the humor, I really, really love British humor. But the appreciation for real music, like artistry, instrumentation. Like, you can't go to the UK, play a track, and then rap over your own lyric. They will boo you off the stage.
Exactly.
And it's an amazing kind of dynamic, because a lot of artists don't get access to a lot of artists like we do.
Right.
Right. So it's a big deal for when these artists come to these other countries, and that these fans get to experience them. But when you go over there, if you don't come correct, you're going to get booed.
Yes.
You're going to get the boot. They're going to kick you off the stage. They're going to shut you down. And I appreciate
that as well. Yeah.
That about them.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Again, kind of going back to K-pop. Like, it looks like bubblegum. It's very glossy or whatever. But then you talk to some of these rappers, and it's like, oh, yeah, my favorite rapper is J. Cole. Or, my favorite rapper is Wale. Like, rappers.
Yes.
They're not talking about, the dudes who are killing it on the charts.
Right.
They're talking about the dudes who are saying something.
Exactly.
And so that was my appreciation for experiencing it there. And what was also dope was for Yo MTV Asia, there are so many different languages and different countries in that territory. So the language that we wound up living with was English. Right. So the hosts all spoke English, and like a lot of the interviews were done in English, and then like the music would be, in their native tongues. So it was interesting to have to approach it that way. I'm like, okay, how are we going to tie in this whole territory? It's not like Yo MTV South Korea. It's Yo MTV Raps Asia. Right. You know what I mean? Right. But I felt like that was a very unique thing. It was an eye-opener for me. That was like the common thread to all of these different countries is our language. No wonder hip-hop is so prominent and so important there. Like, and also some of the biggest, prior to Yo, some of the biggest shows on TV in Asia were hip hop shows, like like rap battle shows, rated like crazy over there. Right. So our culture was much more appreciated there, and they had such honor when dealing with our culture. Right. That it was a dream.
Sounds dope, man. And that leads me to my next question. How have you ever felt about segregation in hip hop? Like, the issue some people take with like a Eminem or where they say you're just a guest in the house of hip hop, where they don't feel that certain people belong or certain ethnicities,
Right.
they have you. Like, how do you feel about that? Because
when it comes, I'm of two minds. When it comes to the creative element of it, I don't feel like we can put parameters on it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we have to give Rick Rubin his flowers.
Exactly. Right.
We have to give the Beasties their flowers. If not for the Beastie Boys, someone who looked like the majority of this country, you know, performing rap music, it opened a lot of ears and put a lot of eyes on the craft that eventually led these people to, you know, other artists. You know, Eminem. If Eminem is not on your list, you don't have a list.
Preach.
Come
Preach,
on, man.
Preach.
Like, what are we even talking about?
He's
you know
definitely
what I'm saying?
on mine. Definitely hands down.
And he ain't got to be in your top 10. But if you're going to do a 50 list and Eminem is not on it,
exactly right,
then ball it up and throw it in the trash. Like, that's just how I feel. And now when it comes to the business and the monetization thereof and the narratives that get pushed out and what artists are priorities and whatnot, we not in them rooms. Right. And that's more of where I have the problem than I do with you saying this is black music and everyone else is like, it's like the music that you make is black music.
Right.
But if I'm Puerto Rican and I make rap music, then I'm making Puerto Rican music. You know what I mean? Like,
that term is just so crazy to me. I love it.
You know what I mean? So I feel like the beauty of hip hop is that it was a way of us expressing our lives and what we were experiencing. And if I was experiencing it, then and I chose to communicate in that form, no matter what I am, that's what it is. Exactly. Especially seeing it now on a global level. Like, you can't tell, you know, Anuel that he can't be making rap music. This is black music. Right. Like, nah, bro. Tego Calderon is one of the illest of all time.
There you go. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, so come on. Yeah. Like, but again, I feel like we need to be focused more on who is monetizing, capitalizing, who is profiting, and who is forcing us to sell sex, drugs, and violence, as opposed to what people are allowed to get on the mic.
Right. No, well said. I mean, for me as a kid, I didn't really, I'm a music lover. So I loved everything from hip hop to disco, from disco to hip hop, reggae, salsa, rock, soft rock, metal. And there were groups like Culture Club that I fell in love with. And I didn't care what Boy George looked like.
Word.
The fact that he looked like a feministic, had his feministic ways and traits. The music was just dope to me.
Word.
Right? And I don't get caught up in this, this black person or this white person or he or she or whatever, or like these, it just, if the music's good to me, I love the music, and that's it. That's the premise of my joy with music. So that I just wanted to touch on that to see if you ever had like a disposition, because I've seen the interviews and you said that it's funny how people don't really highlight the positive impact that hip hop has brought for people from the hoods, the ghettos, and even the suburbs, because I've lived in both. You understand? And like a Eminem, who is a white kid, obviously, who hip-hop impacted tremendously.
Absolutely.
And brought him to the heights and provided that platform to be as expressive as he is as an artist, which to me, very few can express themselves and convey what he does in the way he does. The vocabulary, the syllable structure, I mean, we can go on and on, but I'm so happy that you did highlight that in one of your interviews. And like, who was it? NWA? Was it NWA? What song was that in particular that really inspired you or connected with, resonated with you? You said
F the Police.
There you go. Right, that was the one. Yes.
Sorry, Grandpa. My grandfather's a police officer for 25 years in the city of Philadelphia. I lived with that man when I was playing After Police. I'm sorry. Not all police. but 99% of them. I mean, let's just be honest.
But didn't you say in the interview that your dad was who brought the music home to you and was rocking it? He was a police officer too? And
No, my pop was a G.
Okay.
He was the opposite of a police officer.
Okay.
But yeah, he was that dude, man. One of my favorite moments of being his son. My dad worked night shifts. He was at the time, I think he was a hematologist.
Okay.
Working in blood labs in different hospitals, and he would always he worked 2 different hospitals, 2 different shifts. You know, the man had a lot on his plate. But I was coming into the crib. This was 6th grade. I was coming into the house after school. He was leaving to go to work.
Okay.
And he stops me at the door. He's like, look, upstairs, under your pillow, it's a CD.
Oh, it was a CD at the time. Okay, not a cassette.
It was a CD. He said, only listen to it in your headphones. And if your mother catches you hearing it, you didn't get it from me.
Okay.
It was 36 Chambers.
Wow. Oh,
yes.
Man.
That's my dad.
Okay.
Like, he knew when he was 20 stupid and had children that I probably shouldn't be listening to NWA.
Right.
I probably shouldn't be listening to Wu-Tang. But he gave it to me anyway. He was so excited when he would listen to rap. He would pause it like, did you hear what he just said?
Yes.
He was talking about this, and this. And I'm like, I'm 4.
Yes.
I don't know what you're talking about. But I understood that it had messages. That's what it taught me when he would pause it and break it down to me. I didn't know what he was breaking down. It was Love, Public Enemy. And like he would tell me about the establishment. I'm like, bro, I'm 5. I'm 6. I don't know what the establishment is. Wow. But he made it a point to call these things out so that I understood that there were messages, which is why I really caught on to lyricism. And like I loved Kid and Play and Will Smith when it was just fun rap.
Exactly, yes.
And I could appreciate that. But at the same time, if artists were saying something, especially that I could resonate with, I loved it. Or if it was an experience I hadn't experienced, I appreciated it even more because it was a window into someone else's life.
Right.
That wasn't necessarily mine. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But
this is the thing that I had because I was there almost through its infancy. 76 I was born, and my brother was DJing music. So yeah, I had the Rappers Delight, the Cold Crush Brothers, the Shy Rocks, all of them, right?
My God.
But my point is that I had that balance within hip-hop. All those groups you just mentioned, there's so many other variations that I used to present to my pops. Well, what are they talking about? Such and such I don't really like or agree with. But then, Dad, I have Heavy D. I have X-Clan. I have Public Enemy. I have PRT. I have Brand Nubian. You know, I have Light. I have Latifah. I had so many Boogie Down Productions. I remember riding on the way to Quaker Bridge Mall from Montgomery Township with him in the car listening to Edutainment with the interludes. Wow. And I was so proud of that album. I'm like, Dad, what do you think? Like, my man has got public speakers breaking things down and like variations of like they're talking about the cops, talking about the block, talking about Love's Gonna Get You. I mean, there's so many different variations. And he said, you know, Vic, I can appreciate this. I can appreciate and understand the instrumentation, the message, the lectures that he's given throughout the album, as opposed to now. And that's the thing, like with me, hip hop, I've always wanted it to manifest and never stay stagnant.
Right.
Or just be, quote unquote old school. But I've always just wanted that balance, man. That's it.
It's missing, man, because it doesn't get TikTok views, and it doesn't sell. There's an interesting narrative that it doesn't sell records, but if you look at the artists that are actually selling records, it's artists that are of substance.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely, yeah.
The industry would like to let you think that the BS is what's moving the needle, but when in actuality, J. Cole is outselling everybody anytime he drops anything. Kendrick is changing the world every time he drops anything.
Exactly right.
We can't say that about our other favorite rappers who are a fart in the wind whenever they drop a record. I'm sorry. You just can't say the same thing.
And to build off of what you're saying, these artists that you just mentioned are not on TikTok. They're not oversaturated.
Talk about it.
I mean, granted, not everyone can do what a Kendrick and a J. Cole can, but on the flip side of that, why not?
Why not?
They didn't start out Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole.
Come on, man.
I mean, you know, and like I said, they're not doing the TikToks. They're not even really interviewing that much. They're not in your face every day, all day. So that's all I'm saying to the kids and anybody who just are into the TikTokers and all that. Love what you love, but just keep an open mind, open heart, as you've said clearly in the book, you know, which we'll touch on. And this is a balance. That's all I would love to see more of.
A balanced diet, man. You need a balanced diet of anything you consume, whether it be eating, whatever it is, it needs to be a balanced diet. So listen to, listen to I grew up on NWA.
Right.
I never shot a person before. I never held a gun. I've been around a lot of them. Never held a gun in my life. Never had the urge to. And that was also because I got, Heather B put the Glock down. Man. I got Nonchalant 5 in the morning. I got other records that also showed me the other side of that life. You know what I mean? Yes. It wasn't just inundated with glorification of gang violence or murder or whatever. It was a well-rounded experience in my listening. You know what I mean? And that's what's missing.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that those songs weren't highlighted as much because maybe they didn't sell or have the notoriety? Like you had your Dolores Tuckers, you had your Clarence Thomas or whoever it was that was at Pac, at Snoop, at Death Row. You know what I mean? You think they were as... on them as much as they were because of the notoriety and the success that they had?
Yeah, that was a huge part of it.
Okay.
That was a huge part of it. I also feel like it was a hot button topic for their constituents to get behind. Right. More so than it was actually a problem. And I feel like a big part of the problem, and this is just speculation, was that people of color are making a lot of money with this violence and this stuff. Because, again, they didn't have a problem with the mob movies. They didn't have a problem with that narrative that was getting pushed out and all of those other action, gangbang, shoot 'em up movies.
Terminators, Rambos.
None of those things were an issue. And none of those things had, prompted mass killings like hip-hop did, allegedly.
And this is why I'm glad that you addressed in the interview when you were asked, well, how do you present the hip hop to your kids as far as what you want to differentiate with slapping a woman on her ass as opposed to like just enjoying, like appreciating the music for its entertainment value, but not something that I live my life by and apply to my life. I'm so glad you broke that down. And for those that didn't check the interview out, please break it down again. I love what you said, what you had to say about that.
I don't remember. So I would have to listen to the interview.
Well, just speaking from your heart now, how would you address that?
I mean, I as a father, I look at everything that I experience or that I enjoy with my children as a moment, a teachable moment.
Right.
Like my dad was planted from my dad when we were riding around and he would pause it and let me explain. You know what I'm saying? Like I've always actively seeked out those moments. I remember the first time I had a conversation about sex with my oldest son, who's now 19. But earlier, in his life, we were listening to Daft Punk and Pharrell, Get Lucky.
Right.
And I was like, yo, you know what he's talking about? You know what getting lucky is? And that kind of sparked a whole conversation.
Right.
So, like, I also don't take the approach of just letting my kids listen to anything without any context, without any explanation. Like, I love to have dialogue with my boys about the things that we're listening to or watching and experience. I purposefully seek out like stuff that's going to spark a convo. I remember when Blackish was on air. Yes. We would watch an episode and then we would sit down for an hour and talk about the episode. And it wasn't like homework. It was like we really were diving in and digging into whatever the topic was on that episode, that night. And so my sons have a very educated ear. And so, you know, and it also is a trigger for me, the music that they gravitate toward on their own.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like my son, you know, at a time, one of his favorite rappers was XXX Tentacion. And I'm like, why are you listening to this noise? And he would play me certain records. And I was like, okay, now I have a different level of appreciation for him as an artist, because all I just see him is running around with his shirt off, screaming and yelling.
Tattoos,
really I didn't really understand the depth of his artistry and why he connected to his fans in the way he did. But my son knew it. You know what I mean? So
absolutely,
yeah. So I'm not just letting, you know, anything run wild in my house or, you know, around my sons. I'm very, very intentional and purposeful with the environment that is created around them. And I make sure that conversations are always being had. Sometimes they're, you know, tough conversations. Sometimes they're uncomfortable conversations, but they're conversations nonetheless. And they are so used to talking to me that they will just tell on themselves all the time. And that's just, for me, is just a moment of pride that, like, my sons feel so comfortable that they can just tell me stuff. Like, that to me is just a sign that I'm doing a good job.
And you definitely are, man.
Thank you.
And again, just going back to the balance and being transparent. And these are the elements, as I would want to emphasize and point out to my kids. I definitely appreciate and come from old school values, but I'm not stuck in the past, where I want to stay stagnant. I want to take some tools from the past that was instilled in me, as far as like the All in the Families, where you would sit at the dinner table and have those conversations and be able to address things without people being so hypersensitive and not being able to address things. Those are the elements that I want to keep and bring forth with me into the present, into the future with my kids and so forth. So I can appreciate that about you, and I can appreciate your dad giving it to you straight, as you've talked about so many times, where life is not going to censor itself for you. I remember you saying that, you know?
Come on, what are we doing with these kids, you know? Man? We can't create a bubble and then send them out into the real world and expect the world to, you know, bend to what we've created. We have to prepare them for real life. When my sons stopped rapping and they started making their own rock music and it was trash, I told them
straight up,
this is trash. This is noise.
I love it. Why
are you hurting my heart like this? And then eventually, you know, because they were being true to themselves and finding their voice, they started making amazing music.
That's it, right.
But when it was whack, it was whack. And I'm not going to lie to you and say that it wasn't, so that someone else you leave the house and somebody else will tell you this is trash.
Exactly right.
And it's the first time you heard it.
Now, were you nice and easy and subtle with it, or were you just, this is straight up trash?
Never. My son,
you see, it's not just your dad. This is the school we come from.
And this is just, I changed a lot when I became a father. And a lot of my changes were to make me a better man so that I'm the best me that I can be for them.
That's it.
And I have such an amazing relationship with my sons. Don't get offended by me. You know what I mean? Like if I tell them something is trash, or like I'm very disappointed in their fashion sense. You know what I'm saying? Or lack thereof. And they don't care.
Right.
They couldn't care less what I say about how they dress. You know what I'm saying? And that's because from the time they were born,
I was just about to ask.
I was this dude when it comes to expressing how I feel about certain things.
Right.
And they never took it in offense. They just, that's just dad. That's just how he is. That's how he feels. And, you know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And my dad never sugarcoated anything for me either, man. Right. He'd be like, yo, man. And he would be so disappointed in me. And that would hurt my heart that I disappointed him more so than, you know, him saying, you know, you might want to try. He's not going to get his point across in an effective way if he's, you know, because I would interpret it as it's not that big a deal. He's not even upset. Or he's not even really passionate about it. He's kind of passive about it. So with my sons, I definitely don't bite my tongue. I definitely don't sugarcoat it. I also know my sons. And so if one is more sensitive about something than the other, then I'm not going to be a bully.
Right.
I'm going to approach them in a way that, at the end of the day, effective communication is my goal. Mm-hmm. It's not an ego thing with me. I'm going to tell you how it is and you're going to take it. No, I want to be effective.
Right.
But I just so happen to have developed them with very tough skin.
That's it. And that's
so
what it
I
boils
really,
down to. Right.
That's just, it is what it is. Which is why I love it, because now my sons walk out in the world and you can't tell them nothing.
Anything that penetrates.
You can't tell them nothing.
Right.
You can't tell them that they are not who they are.
That's right.
They'll look at you like you're crazy.
And on the flip side of that too, Maja, just to both of my kids, Maja and Zaya, who I'm so proud to have you guys here. I love you guys. We say all of this to say that we're just trying to prepare you for what life is gonna gonna prepare you for, whether you like it or not. And what I love and respect so much about this man and reading his book that just humbled me and learned me a few lessons is that we're also vulnerable. We're humans. We make mistakes.
Yes.
That's what I love so much about his message. And I got most from his reading his book was the transparency and saying, look, I made an ass of myself a lot of times too. Straight up and down. And if I can just show you guys, this is going to also help you guys to feel comfortable in knowing that I'm not just super dad and I'm perfect or I'm old school. So my way is the only way and the right way. But it's just saying we don't want you to mirror us and be like mini-me's. But, I mean, I do understand and appreciate more now when my parents said, we didn't want you to make the same mistakes we made necessarily, but at the same time, we have to allow you guys to make mistakes.
Got to.
So we can't also cushion everything that you guys go through in life because it's not going to help you learn anything. And reading your book this week, man, I'm telling you, it was arm in arm because I'm going to tell a little story with my son this past week actually with the family as a whole. I take accountability too. We were all late getting the kids to school one morning, right? And I was dead tired when I got up, half asleep. And I didn't feel like fussing through traffic, Jersey City traffic. I'm like, it is what it is. You know, if we're going to be late, what can I do? Why even stress about it? Mm-hmm. By the time I got home in the afternoon, I told my kids, I said, look, listen, I'm not going to fuss anymore. I came to the realization today, if we wake up late, first of all, you shouldn't just depend on your mom and I to get you up in the morning.
Talk about it.
You guys are old enough. You're 13, 10 years old.
You got phones and iPads. They got alarms.
And as mom
even when you silence them, they will yell.
Yes, right.
Let's be clear.
But, as mom said, it's our job and duty to make sure that food is there so that you guys can prepare your lunches and things for the next day or that from that night or whatever. But as far as us waking you up, And if we end up getting late to school, that's on y'all. But
I woke myself up early this morning.
No.
Yo, the crowd participation.
No, baby, no. Listen, let them talk because I told Yaz, this is victory is ours. This is an open platform. It's an honor to have my kids to vocalize their opinions and their views. So listen, Maja, please continue with your point.
Oh my goodness.
Technically, I woke myself up.
She woke herself up.
4:30 in the morning.
Why so early? Why did you wake yourself up? She said she woke herself up at 4:30 a.m. Why? Was there an alarm?
No, I usually wake up without an alarm, but sometimes I put on an alarm. But sometimes I wake up earlier than that. Not on purpose, not intentionally.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But this time I woke up at 4:30 because I had to clean my room and I had to take a shower.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Shout out to you for being a morning person.
Yes.
Wow.
And then my son Zaya, when I woke up out of my sleep in a frantic, yo, it's past 7 o'clock. We got to get the kids out the door. He was already up. I don't know what he was doing. The light was on in his room. He was walking back and forth. I'm like, Zaya, why didn't you wake anyone up? Why didn't you say good morning? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? He said, what was your response, Poppy? What'd you say?
I thought it was Sunday.
Yo, shout out to you. He thought it was Sunday. That's a great excuse. I wish I would have thought of that. That's a great excuse. But my sons are the same way. They act like they don't know what day it is. In your case, you probably, definitely felt like it was second Sunday. But like, my goodness, like I would love to go through the world not knowing what day it was. Like if you having that much fun every day of your life that you don't know, oh, it's Monday. Like that's a good life, man.
This is true, and I can't even deny it. But I told him, I said, Papi, I said, I love you, but I do want you to be more cognizant of the days. You're not perfect. I'm not expecting you to be perfect, but I need you to be more hyper aware as to the days, what you need to prepare for your day. So if you guys can't get it together, then if we're going to be late, we're going to be late. And it relates back to what you said in the book about your son and the school, not knowing the path. Bro. And like, listen, he needs to know, whether it's Philly, New York, how to navigate through these streets and what to do. Man. Because if not, I can't always be his crutch or his, his landing trampoline or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean?
The safety net, for
the
sure.
Safety net, right,
yeah.
right.
And he's, like you said, like taking accountability of, if we late, picking up the slack, holding us accountable, wake us up. If you're up, getting yourself together. These are things that are going to prepare them for later on in life. Right. Like my son Joe, my oldest son, now is a sophomore in college at Drexel. He, I would have to wake him up several times in the morning to get ready to go to school when he was a senior in high school.
Oh, wow.
So when he went to college, I was just praying for that man. Wake up on your own, please. And I would tell him when he was a senior, I'm like, bro, just get into the habit now of waking yourself up so that when you go to school, it's second nature. And it's not like you're going to have to learn it then. And he got it together. But yeah, man, it's
now, what do you think
tough.
is inspirational? What is it that made him snap out of it and get it together? What do you think? Was it you? Was it a lesson he learned? What?
It wasn't me. I think it was the fact that he was at school and he was excited to go to school. So it woke him up out of bed. I don't know how excited he was to go to school every day in high school. So that maybe wasn't motivating, for him to spring up out the bed. But, he did great in his freshman year. He killed it. He never called me, which, was very sad for me, but showed me that he didn't need me.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, along with that message and so many throughout the book you covered, man, and one of the things, again, that I appreciate is that you address us stepdads.
Yeah,
and
man.
I know that most people say, listen, there's not a life book or a manual for parenthood, but I feel like your book was the closest thing to it for me as a lover of music, of hip-hop, and just as a stepdad. And my wife is asked so many times, like, why don't you join a group of guys, other dads that can maybe help guide and prepare you through some of these struggles and adversities you go through? And it's not everyone. I think we had this discussion over lunch. Like, it's not everyone that I feel compelled to rock with or like, and that's one of the other things you addressed that I so appreciate in the book is just preparing the people or preparing your sons for the company that you keep.
Yeah,
it's not everybody. You got to be super, super selective. And it reminds me also of a prior podcast episode I had with a friend of mine. We talked about fatherhood. We talked about the company you keep. And I just think it's so essential to be selective throughout your life.
That backfires, though. And let me tell you why.
Please do. Please.
And I did not say this in the book.
Okay. I got a gem.
Because it wasn't. So, yes, the company you keep is very important. For me, it was the men that my sons were surrounded by. Were like-minded. They were, men of God, men of purpose, talented, straight up, real men, real leaders, right? On the flip side of that, I grew up raised by a lot of amazing, strong, brilliant women. And I got out in this world and thought that every woman I came across was an amazing, strong, brilliant woman. And I found out through a lot of heartbreak that they were like the rarest creatures on earth. And I just thought that they were abundantly available because in my life, that was the environment that I grew up in. And so nobody told me that not all of the people out in the world are these people. So you have to express that to your children as well. When you create this amazing community and this village around them, you have to let them know, like, these are real men. Mm-hmm. Ain't a lot of them in the world. It's a lot of them in your life. It's not a lot of them in your world, right. and vice versa when it comes to the women that my sons are around. But I learned it, and I was mad as hell when I came home. After I was like, why y'all didn't tell me that women cheat?
Yeah.
Why you didn't tell me that not every woman out here is going to be honest with me and going to care about me and going to mean me well? Why didn't you tell me that? Y'all just sent me out in the world and was like, have at it. Mm-hmm. So there's a balance. We have to prepare them.
Absolutely. Did you ever have those type of conversations aside from the hip hop with your dad? Because I know that you dedicated the book to him. He's probably like your biggest inspiration aside from the other people you mentioned. Did you ever have the birds and bees conversation, the talks about, maybe you didn't have the conversations about those type of women or guys that would be out there just as scandalous as some of,
No, I didn't really have those conversations with my dad. I had a lot of those conversations with my mom.
Okay.
And my mother really, really, really drove home that mother's intuition. Mm-hmm. I've never said this before, but I want to say it right now. The night I lost my virginity,
okay,
I walked in the door and my mother was crying.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I'm glowing. I am I'm not even walking. I am floating in the house. And I'm like, why are you crying? Mm-hmm. And she said, I know you had sex.
Wow.
I was like, how the?
Wow. I don't understand how these mothers do. They just, it's crazy.
It ruined the whole night. It ruined everything for me because I just knew. I was like, yo, I'm never going to be able to get anything by this woman because clearly God tells her everything. And like, so she would meet me at certain moments in my life and have these conversations more with me than any. Like, I remember I was very young in high school and I was dating this girl. I was feeling this other girl. And my mom told me, she was like, don't lie. Don't ever lie to the girl that you're with. Mm-hmm. It's natural for you to have feelings for someone else in this stage in your life, but don't break her heart. Don't lead her on. Don't lie and try to string her along and have this other person that you're really interested in. Like, that's not fair to them. Be honest. And she said, and my mom is a G for this, she said, and truthfully, baby, 9 times out of 10, if you're honest, you can have them both. And I was like, oh, that was a G move.
Wow.
So that was like, she would pick up on certain things that I was maybe experiencing like in the spirit realm and then bring them to me. And I have a very, very spiritual relationship with my mother. Like, my mom is like, she's an amazing, amazing woman. But, I had a lot of interesting conversations about women and about sex and things like that, more so with my mom than I did with my dad. Yeah.
Okay. And, one of the things with reading the book, it really brought me through a roller coaster of emotions, right? Because I felt the connection with your dad and just the inspiration, and to be totally transparent as you've been, I didn't have that growing up with my pops.
Right.
But what I also could appreciate and respect with your book.
How old was your dad when he had you?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I've never asked him. I'm going to ask him that.
So you don't know how old your dad is now?
Oh, no. He just turned 77.
So do the math.
True.
It's your birthday.
I'm not the best with math, but I was born in 76, he's 77. So you put me on the spot.
40-some years old when he had you.
Yes, there you go. Yep.
How old?
There you go.
He was 20?
Yeah, no, that sounds about,
My math was that off?
Yeah, yep. 20 years off.
No, please, no.
20 years off?
Somebody math this.
47.
I'm 47 today. I was born in 76. My dad is 77.
No, he was 30.
Okay. So we met somewhere in the middle. You were half right. You were half right.
30. My dad was 20.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I was closer to his age when I was born than you were. And, you know, when you're a 20-year-old male and you're a 30-year-old male, you're 20 years apart.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like me at 30 and me at 20 were light years.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of it had to also probably do with that. Like my dad was still, you know, young, like, you know, not very, not thinking about being a father. He was very intentional, you know, in his fatherhood, but I don't think he was still somewhat young, and I think the immaturity bonded us, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Whereas maybe your dad was a little more mature and, like, you know, ready to be
very
a dad
militant.
type.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I heard you say that you know, the Puerto Rican, and that you don't really speak the language. Was it because did your dad not teach you? Was there a disconnect, or what happened with that? Because I have a story behind that too.
First of all, I would tell my dad I want to learn Spanish. He would go, "Well, what do you want to know?" Spanish, man. Like, teach me Spanish. You know what I'm saying? Like, just speak only Spanish to me in the house. No, that's too much work. My dad is fluent in Spanish, right? And so, yeah, he just, well, you want to know. And then his excuse would be, everybody in this house is black but me. Like, if I'm going to speak Spanish, I'm going to be talking to myself. Like, why am I going to speak Spanish? No one else in the house speaks Spanish. Okay. And I'm like, that's kind of not the point. And I have a theory on this. If you are mixed race and your mother speaks a different language, in my experience, 9 times out of 10, and I have a lot of half Puerto Rican, half other friends, if their mother is the Spanish speaker in the house, they're bilingual. Right. I would agree with that. But if the father is a Spanish speaker, that's good luck. I hope you can even speak English.
Very interesting. That makes sense, because that's the case in my household. My mom's from Barbados. My father's from Panama. Okay. So on top of the fact that, you know, there was a huge disconnect. Matter of fact, I wrote a verse. Like, here it goes.
Please bless us with the verse.
I had both parents, the youngest of 3, in a 5-member family, secure financially. Still, it wasn't all fine and dandy. Not exactly the Huxtables, a bit dysfunctional. Convey my point of view in a way that made it uncomfortable to discuss with you and admit to the disconnect I felt. Not to discredit things that he did correct, but help. I needed with steps to show plain respect to girls, and the opposite is what I came to expect. Affection didn't exist. Love was missing in his approach with us. Only focused on discipline. Judgment, not cognizant how most of his time was spent. Some patience I would have taken at times. I tried to vent and struggle with embracing my Hispanic descent, because learning how to speak Spanish from him was frantic and tense. Lacked confidence. Self-assurance wasn't one of my strengths. Attention deficit disorder was my only defense. That's all I wrote so far with that.
That's, bro, come on. And that's why I love hip-hop, because I learned so much about you in less than 16 bars.
Thank you.
Man. So
yeah, bro. That's self-explanatory. The disconnect, the reason why, you know, I do understand a lot of Spanish. I can speak to survive and get through, but I'm not as fluent, obviously, as him or the next person. And I've learned my Spanish through friends and growing up and going through jobs and stuff like that. But I mean, my father now, and forgive me if I get emotional, but reading your book recently, honestly, has really kind of handheld me these last few weeks, because they're now experiencing health issues, and whatever issues I've had with him, past, present, have kind of subsided because of the fact that he fell down the stairs a couple weeks prior to his birthday, which was on August 11th, and he was hospitalized, and they're going through a lot of different situations right now, right? So I had to fly. That's one of my reasons why I had to fly to Atlanta. My main reason was to secure their household from scammers, which is an everyday thing now with a lot of different people I know who like hone in on elderly people, and just really try to create a process where we can get them back to Jersey and not 13 hours away from us. So I've been dealing with a lot of family turmoil even today. And I felt like, this honestly is going to be a really good therapy session for me. Talking with you and someone who just as transparent as you've been. And I just, again, want to reiterate how important your book has been to me.
Thank you.
I'm trying to hold back from not crying at the moment.
On that note, was
I'm really
he
trying not to?
Was he first generation here, or was he an immigrant?
Great question. Immigrant. He was in Panama. English was his second language.
Okay. I feel like that has a lot to do with the parenting styles. At least in my experience of especially with my friends, especially as it pertains to hip hop. When people come here to the land of opportunity, especially our parents, they think that the road to success is their road.
Right. Exactly right.
And that's the only road. And if you get off on a road, on this road, on another, then you've wasted my energy and trying to get you here to this better place so that you can make a better life for yourself. And I'm that kid. I've had arguments with a lot of immigrant fathers on behalf of my friends because of their forcing their children to go the way that they think is best for them to be.
Like it's the only path to go through.
But I also have a lot of understanding. I mean, I didn't experience it, but I can understand where they're coming from if that's all they think that you're going. If that's the only way that they think you'll be successful,
right?
You know what I'm saying?
I understand. Yeah.
And obviously for you, it's real, and it's way tougher, and it's a tougher reality. But I think that, of course, they meant well, and they wanted nothing but the best for you and for you to be successful. They just were ignorant to the many ways that you could go about, doing so. And
that's a spot on point. Like I felt like my father was. I love the analogy of the Wu-Tang and the different chambers, the levels of how to parent, but I felt like that wasn't as optional back then through that generation as it is now. We didn't have they didn't have therapy, they didn't have different examples of how to maybe parent. Because I know in most cases, well, that's how my father was. He was just sun rose and landed on his back. Like he was Superman and perfect. And again, that's what I could appreciate with your book was that you said that the total opposite. I am not Superman. I'm a human. I'm dad. Yes, I'm dad, but I'm with flaw. And it's through my flaws that I'm going to help you kids to learn and also teach myself because I'm a student as well as being dad. And that's all I really wanted to hear, from my dad was, look, Vic, I can appreciate your stance, your position. I don't think it's rude because you have your own opinion. It's because you defy my opinion. Yeah, man. So it's rude. It's, no, like I'm me. I'm not mini you. I'm Victor. I'm not Donaldo Benito, the second. That's my older brother. That's he gained, junior, but I'm who I am. So
yeah, man.
Again, man, I just think people really need to go out and support this brother's book because there's a lot of endless gems of how to parent, to be more open-minded, to be more open-hearted. And I mean, not just for the parents, but for the kids as well. Not just for men, but for women as well. Because there's gems that he drops in the book about his wife and how her approach has been to him without emasculating him as, and who he is and being not perfect, but just her approach is different. Yeah, you understand?
She's a wizard, bro. She better write this book. I've asked her to write a book so many times about just her. First of all, she's the greatest mom of all time. And like I was raised by, I'm going to use a basketball analogy. I was raised by the Dr. J of moms. And my wife is the Michael Jordan of moms. Wow. Like and my mom will tell her that. And my grandmother, who is another GOAT, would always say it. So she's a G. But like she has a way of motivating me and a way of saying things to me. And like, so my this is, when I was 20 stupid and we had first started dating, my mother called me. And at the time I lived in Harlem, my mom was in Philly or South Jersey. And she asked me to do something. And I jumped up. And my wife's like, what are you doing? At the time, she was my girlfriend. She's like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, my mom needs me to do this stuff, something. Mm-hmm. She goes, so I feed you. I ask you to do something 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Mm-hmm. Your mom calls you, and then immediately you're activated. And that's all I needed to hear.
Wow.
Because it just puts things in such perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I definitely need to check that. Like, but she didn't have to yell and scream and do all this stuff. She just had to present it to me in a way that just made all the sense in the world.
Right.
Like, and that's her gift.
Wow.
And I'm not going to say she don't yell and scream at me.
Right.
She definitely does that. But it's just the ill slick way that she can frame some things. And in the book, I talk about how she just told me one day, you know, when you go to work, they get the best of you, and we get whatever's left.
Yeah, that hits home.
I'm like, say no more.
That hits home.
I'm slacking at work now, and I'm giving you my all.
And like, I can relate to that as well. And my shortcomings.
You know what I'm saying?
I've definitely been there, and I can relate. Want to close things out shortly, but there's a couple other quick questions I want to ask you. I know as an inspiration to us through either hip hop or movies, we have our inspirational dads. For me, James Evans, Heathcliff Huxtable. What's my man's name from Boys in the Hood? Lawrence Fishburne's character.
Oh, yeah.
And there's
with the kitchen cut.
Yeah. Scene. So for you, who are yours if you have any, and why? If so, favorite dads of celebrity dads.
It's definitely Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable.
Okay.
And the reason why is he had so much fun being a dad. And he made fatherhood look so fun. Mm-hmm. And the way he taught lessons to his children, it was always a lighthearted sense of humor. It wasn't such a hard, like James Evans. Yes. It wasn't that. It wasn't such a dire, whatever.
Yeah.
And so he was my favorite. Uncle Phil, man. Mm-hmm. I feel like Uncle Phil is the dopest stepfather of all time.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with
that. Though
that
wasn't his role, that was his role.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And again, I feel like the way he kind of gravitated toward Will and brought him under his wing and made him his son. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like he was dope. And then for the third, I don't know, man.
It could be those two. That's cool.
Yeah, I think those are the two.
And since I could chop it up with you all
real
day. And I said this when we first met, but we're going to close out. We didn't really get to have you interview or talk to me and probe me as much.
Right.
But in closing, do you have any questions for me since we got to this point, the fourth quarter?
Yeah, man. I feel like, I want to ask you a question, but I don't want it to be
generic.
Very long-winded.
Okay.
But for the stepfathers out there, what has been your greatest challenge and what has been your greatest victory?
My greatest victory has been these beautiful kids and connecting with them. They're my biggest heroes. And one example I'll give is anytime I've suffered a loss of a friend, a loved one, this beautiful young lady over here has come to my side. She's been my pillow to cry on, my shoulder to lean on. Wow. As young as I'm talking about, she's 13 now. This is from when she was 7 years old. She would provide that comfort for me.
That's amazing, man.
Okay, and just seeing them grow from childhood, since infancy.
Right.
That's been the greatest victory. Some of the greatest challenges are their actual dad and the other side, the others, as we call them. Not being as hands-on as I would have wanted to be.
Right.
I don't like the whole stepdad thing.
I
like these are my kids. I've known them all my life.
Facts.
But there's unfortunate realities that snap me back, knowing that you're not the actual dad.
Right.
That's where I have a hard time with and a struggle with.
Word.
It's not being as hands-on as I would love to be.
Right.
Making those decisions for schools for them to look at, certain behaviors or ideologies with certain things, even though they're who they are.
Right.
And I'm not trying to puppeteer them, but under my tutelage and my guidance. Yeah. They go from one house to one half of the week, the other house, the other portion of the week.
Right. It's the compromise.
That's
yeah,
it.
Man. No, that's real. And I feel like, that's one of the most important conversations that I want to have. Because the other day I got a comment on one of my YouTube videos that hurt my heart the most. And it was some internet troll said that if a man is taking care of another man's children, he's a simp. Oh. That hurt my heart for that person so bad. Wow. And my response to them was, I'm sorry you feel that way, but where I'm from, if a man is taking care of any child, he's a man. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I feel like the stepfatherhood thing is something that a lot of men struggle with for a lot of different reasons. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the more dialogue we have and the more conversation we have around it, then I feel like the easier it'll be for the men out there who are going through that journey, for them to not only feel seen and heard, but also to feel supported and gain some wisdom from people like us who we ain't stepped nothing. Like even my son, like I said, he's my son. I'll call him my son for his whole life. I remember when my middle son told him he was adopted. Oh wow. And he cried. He was so upset. I'm like, fool, you were here before him. Why are you mad? But that's how close, we are. Right. But, that we need to talk about that.
Absolutely. I think we should close out. But look, if I could agree to get you on for a part 2 episode.
Let's do it.
We'll do another part 2 of Victory is Ours at another time. And usually I close out with the beginning points, the middle process, and what the ultimate victory is for victory. What is your ultimate victory? But you actually reversed that question to me organically. So
come on, man.
Hey, baby, did you catch that? He actually asked the question that we typically ask at the end of the episode. So that's the organic connection that we have.
Absolutely.
And listen, I'd like to thank Big Up Coke Cafe for providing the platform, the opportunity. These guys are wonderful dudes. Honestly, like the hospitality, the arrangement, you'll see it. It's dope, to say the least.
Beautiful in here.
The energy's been
Great
right.
Energy. The
accommodations. So I big you guys up. Ryder, Vic, my man over here I just met today. Salute to all of you.
When you come here, leave your wives at home, because these dudes who work here are going to take your girlfriend. I'm so glad my wife's not here. That's all I'm saying. They buff for no reason. They got jewelry on. They look fly. You don't need to do that behind the camera. That's my only note. I'm sorry.
And I'd like to thank all my guests who were with me and with us in present and through the listening. We appreciate you for taking the time out. Again, love y'all. Please be safe. Take care of your kids. Take care of yourselves. Stay blessed. Love y'all. Victory is ours. Salute.
Hey.
Man, thank you so much. Wow.
I had so much fun, man.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. First and foremost, it would be a disservice to not mention all of this being possible because of God. All right, that's the first thing. And secondly, even more importantly, my wife, M. Josephine, because first of all, this podcast wouldn't have even been born if it had not been for her and her brilliance and suggestion that I start a podcast and name it after myself, after Victor. Victory is ours. And this whole platform here wouldn't have manifested into anything if it wasn't for her and her behind the scenes arrangements and talking and calling this one and that one. And just, I love my wife, M. Josephine. You're my best friend. You're my heart, my backbone, my ride or die. I love you. I'm going to get emotional, but this is what you inspire from me and invoke out of my heart. And for this man here, again, thank you, sir, for your time, your brilliance, your heart, most of all, your generosity. And thank you for making the time. And just, again, Coke Cafe, I appreciate y'all. Just had to say that. And everyone who made time out tonight for me and this platform, thank you. Thank you again. Victory is ours. Victory is ours. Victory is ours. Peace. Salute.